Okie pokey weirdos, I'm Rev, and welcome to my world of cosplay shenaniganery. Due to our current state in the world, discrimination has increased at an insane level. Thank you, Captain Obvious. And I am positive that this is largely due to our rotten Cheeto puff of a leader encouraging the harshest possible opinions of the Americans, which in turn increases and encourages all of the discriminatory and hateful behaviors all across the world.
If we all got over it and let the past be the past, cosplay could really be for everyone. 4 months ago, the president posted pictures of the Obamas as monkeys. This guy walked around looking for black people to call slurs until he shot somebody. And after he did, thousands of people gave him money. Racism is not the past, it's the current reality.
The hate comments are non-stop, and so many of them are slurs coming from barely educated, purposely oblivious, and obtuse keyboard warriors who can't tell their noses from their dinglings. Creators with dark skin are the ones dealing with the maximum onslaught of these haters, and they have been since before the internet. In this age of instantaneous reaction, where all the discriminatory creeps have access to telling you exactly what they think of you without any consequences, now we are seeing these slurs that are meant to insult very specific ethnic groups being regularly used on creators who are very clearly not part of those ethnic groups, in turn insulting the group as well as the creator not part of that group. With the constant use of slurs, insults being thrown around all willy-nilly to prove their incompetence, and the general increase in disrespectful behavior, let's talk about Blackface and Locs, and the historical significance behind them both. Even though you've probably already seen the title and you probably know what this topic is going to be about, let me say it for YouTube because I might be using some naughty words that are in the form of an educational video. So this is an educational video, YouTube. Some of these words that often get flagged on YouTube are often actually the correct terms for what we are dealing with here, considering we are talking about discrimination. Another disclaimer being that you're going to be seeing some characterizations and depictions of characters that are going to be offensive. Here's your first one from Betty Boop. And if this is something you don't want to stick around for, turn back now. Because we are talking about the historical significance of these topics within our historical media. Also, I will make it as blatantly obvious as I can if someone has been interviewed for this video, if it is my own opinion, if I'm using the video for commentary only, or if I got the creator's permission to go ahead and use the video. That way, everybody's opinion is their own and we have no confusion of whose is whose. We got it? We cool? Great. Welcome to the madness. In the cosplay community,
I've started intentionally saying cosplay scene instead of cosplay community because I think it's really important to explicitly verbally call out the difference. A scene is a place where people go. Anyone can come in. A community is a group of people who are connected by the fact that they have chosen to be in community with each other. They have chosen to support each other. They have chosen to be there for each other, to call each other out when they need to, and support each other when they need to. A scene is just where people go. A scene does not have your back. There are plenty of people in a scene who will hurt you and will not care. They are not your community, and you shouldn't treat them like they are. Now, that's not to say that you can't trust anyone in the cosplay scene, and there are many communities within it. But you should not be trusting strangers who have not earned your trust.
So, okay, in the cosplay scene, we have had a massive outbreak of blackface cosplayers, and a large majority of them have been Russian. That is blackface. And why is it a trend of Russian cosplayers doing this? It's very consistently Russian cosplayers. Please, someone tell me why this is a trend right now. To my understanding, a large part of the excuses that people are making for doing blackface cosplay is for accuracy's sake. To make themselves look more closely like the character by changing their skin color and then blaming accuracy on that terrible, inappropriate practice. And the whole accuracy thing to me, in general, is just insane because we're playing dress up. Why are we taking this so seriously? You do not have to look exactly perfectly like the character. We're supposed to be having a little fun here.
If you're a cosplayer that's too scared to post your content, or if you're someone that wants to get into cosplay but's also too scared to do so, can I just be very honest with you? Most of the characters that I cosplay, I don't look like. At all. And I'll never be them. But the one thing I can tell you is that cosplay is not about who you look like. It's not about if you sound like the characters, none of that. It's all about the passion that you have for a character. Whoever that character may be. It doesn't matter. It's all about if you know for a fact, or if you just want to cosplay a character out of curiosity. There's no rules to this. So you're going to see you're probably going to see some negative comments because you are on the internet. Yes, when you put yourself out there, you put yourself in front of those types of people, but I can guarantee you that majority of them aren't even cosplayers. They don't even care or respect the space. Most of the time you're going to get supportive comments from actual cosplayers. The people that don't understand it or just don't like cosplayers, they're going to be the ones mostly telling you that, hey, you don't look like this character isn't this color, this character isn't this size. It's all these things that you don't need to pay attention to. I've wasted so much time trying to respond to these comments, and I would tell myself, oh, it doesn't bother me. I'm just responding because that's what I like to do. I like to shut comments down. But sometimes I still do respond, but it doesn't really matter. They're gonna always comment. You can block them, mute them. They're always gonna keep coming, but I would encourage you to just focus more on the support. And if you're someone right now that decides to get into it because of this video, that decides to just post it, I'll support you. We'll support your cosplay because it's what I would have wanted when I started cosplaying, and it's what I'm grateful to have now when I post my content. So drown out the noise. Most of these people don't even care. They just want to ruin somebody's day, and they happen to make you their target, but it's probably not even personal. Doesn't justify it though.
Try to enjoy yourself. Just a little bit. Also, really dumb excuse. A lack of education on blackface can also be due to some of this as well. There are also those who insist that they're not doing blackface, and there's nothing wrong with what they're doing because it's not actually blackface. And then there are those who know what they're doing, but say that we should keep politics out of cosplay when it is an art form?
If you're a cosplayer, just shut the fuck up about politics. Shut the fuck up.
You're attracted to minors. Yeah, we're starting this off with a bang. Let's get into some things they've talked about before. Because of course, it's not already bad enough that you're a diddler on the roof when it comes to kids, and you defend it, but on top of that, you've cosplayed Cusco from Emperor's New Groove and painted your skin brown, and when people called you out for that, you called them filthy Mexicans. Cosplay is an art form, art is political. Hate to break this to you, Pookie, but cosplay is political. Jolly good show. Like, that's on par with saying, like, oh, we'll keep politics out of anime, and the person who says that has, like, a One Piece profile picture. Like, shut up, dude. Now, I can keep going and going, but I think everybody gets the point that this isn't a good person. This type of behavior in the cosplay community, hell, in general, just needs to be called out because it's not okay, it's never going to be okay, and people need to be held accountable for their actions. Food for thought.
And all art forms involve politics. Essentially, they're taking blackface on as a form of rage bait or race bait, as I've been seeing in the comments lately, meaning that none of these options are politically correct. However, I will admit that it is extremely difficult to be politically correct these days, especially with how quickly things change, so something I record in this video on this day, June 12th, might be considered politically incorrect in a week from now. Either way, they are being extremely disrespectful no matter how you slice it, so let's bring out an official definition on blackface. That way there will be no confusion for this video. As quoted from the EBSCO database, blackface is a theatrical practice characterized by the use of makeup and costumes by white performers to imitate and exaggerate the appearance and stereotypes of African Americans. This tradition originated in the United States with minstrel shows in the 1830s, where performers adopted exaggerated characteristics to portray African Americans, often reinforcing negative stereotypes. The practice has deep historical roots dating back to the Middle Ages in Europe, where blackening one's face was often associated with representing evil. As a cosplayer with fair skin, I worried that a lot of people would insist I don't have any room to talk on this topic. However, even though I am quite pale because of all the Irish, German, and Scottish in me, I also have at least 4 tribes of Native American in me, and that's why I tan so quite very red. And my mom tans redder than I do. But with my skin tone in consideration, I did make sure to get multiple opinions from a variety of cosplayers and other content creators to make sure that we don't only have one perspective, and then we'll be able to educate ourselves through multiple points of view and make our own opinion based upon that. Data and research, baby! This is a massive topic, and I will not be able to get everything in one video. It was an insane rabbit hole just for Blackface, but we are also including Locs in this video, so another rabbit hole. Meaning that there will be no singular fix to something like this, because it would be like putting a band-aid over a missile wound. However, I do want to point out that all skin colors should be talking about this.
There's a Jabber cosplay that's been going around recently, and it's reopened the discussion of appropriation within the cosplay sphere. And while I'm simply a guest in the conversation, I do want to try to amplify and educate as best as I can. And so what I've always understood to be the issue with these types of cosplays done by non-black people is that you're using a hairstyle that's historically been discriminated against for the sake of a costume. Driving the point further, wearing locks to imitate black hair and receiving praise for it when black Americans have been discriminated against for that very same hairstyle is quite frankly just insulting and shows the level of privilege in this situation. At the end of the day, we can't ignore historical prejudice and discrimination for the sake of a cosplay. There are plenty of alternatives you can do if you want to cosplay those characters, but it's important to be mindful and respectful of others that share the same space as you. This is one of the defining aspects of community that I feel like we've simply forgotten.
The way that black and darker skinned cosplayers are being treated right now by the cosplay community is unacceptable. There's cases of cosplayers blackfacing and brownfacing, and there's discourse around it. There's people calling them out, but it's not enough. There's not enough creators absolutely calling these people out, demonstrating that this is absolutely not okay, and it's really disheartening. It's really disheartening when white people like myself aren't speaking up louder. People trying to silence black cosplayers into just not making a big deal out of this, not voicing their opinions about blackfacing and brownfacing being wrong, not trying to defend themselves after people are trying to rage bait for the sake of being assholes. If you are a black or darker skinned cosplayer or anyone that feels victimized and that feels alienated and feels put down by the actions of others right now, especially the cosplayers that are blackfacing and brownfacing, my heart goes out to you. This is not acceptable. Please keep speaking up. If you are someone that's sitting on the sidelines and just watching, please start speaking up louder.
Because if we cannot come to an agreement as a community, we're going to continue arguing and there's going to be no resolution. So we need to understand these topics for what they are, come to an agreement, and then we can start making things better. A house divided and all that. But I also worked really hard to do all the research I could and get about a 12-page essay done for this video. Yikes, I haven't done one of those in a couple years. Because I do not want to sound like this white a-hole that keeps popping up on my social media.
Now, for anyone who doesn't know, a little while ago, a black cosplayer by the name of Ashley, or Squid Kid 1111, took her own life due to the amount of racism and bullying she was receiving online for just being a black girl trying to do cosplay. So the very fact that this guy would not only bring up her death, but use her death to support his argument that anyone who just feels some type of way about the white Jabber cosplay, they're just racist and they need to get over themselves because another Ashley could happen, it's so disgusting to me. It's so disgusting to me because his point is literally undermining the reason why she's not even here today.
To quote my mutual Ari, I have thoughts, but no real conclusions. By this definition, if someone is darkening their skin to cosplay Cusco or human Alistair, yes, that is called blackface. I feel that the simplest way to put this is that if there is a community out there whose skin tone you are imitating cannot be rubbed off at the end of the day, do not do it. So I don't want to hear the arguments, so I can't be blue, so I can't be purple. If there is a community out there now who's naturally that skin color, for no extreme medical reasons, you're not painting your skin that color because it will not rub off for the other people. Got it?
What I was saying was I really appreciate you asking for my opinion. And I have thoughts, but not really conclusions. So let me start with characters where they're obviously represented as black and brown folk in media. Those are very clearly defined. Though, we can take characters like Usopp, Jabber. I don't know her name from Gachiakuta, but love her, baddie through and through. I don't know her name, but they're clearly shown as being, black and brown folk, and people can, no one would be mad if a white person cosplayed them. The problem becomes when people are buying body paint or foundation that is not their complexion for, in the name of quote unquote cosplay accuracy. And, when it's characters who are clearly defined as black and brown folk in anime or American media, then anybody can cosplay them. That's fine. The problem, as I said, comes when people are buying body paint or foundation that is significantly darker than what their actual complexion is.
Hi, my name is Bugs, aka Bugs Rayo, and today I want to talk about some things. Speaking of cosplay, I want to talk about the cosplay community and the blatant racism towards black cosplayers. Because every time I try to talk about this topic, I always get shut down by these people. Somehow, some way, we always get the same comments like, oh, black cosplayers are not accurate, or this is not accurate, you're too dark for this cosplay and all that. Or rather, they just call us the N-word version of that character. When it comes to black cosplayers, cosplaying from anime, saying oh, the character's not black. The character's not white either. When black cosplayers get hate, it's because the color of their skin, right? Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind when they cosplay characters. The second a white person cosplays a character and does blackface, yes, blackface, I don't know how else to sugarcoat it. I can't really sugarcoat it. It's blackface. They get praise, they get likes, they get worship. And when us black cosplayers, speak up hey, this is wrong, you don't really have to do that, whole time, they want to shut us up. Shut up, black people. You don't know what we're talking about. They're not mocking the black cosplayers. Or they're not mocking black people. It's still blackface. It's still blackface. I'm so sick of people trying to say, blackface is when you, mock, black people. Yes, however, you usually are skin as if it's a costume. As if it's a costume. That's still considered blackface. You usually are skinned if it's a costume. And it's not fair, because at the end of the day, you can wipe your paint off, but we can't. You see this? We can't. And yet we still get hate. Just because of the color of our skin. And we're oh, what about pink face? But blue face, pink face, that don't exist. You're just being straight up ignorant. It's not fair. And when we speak up oh, it's not a big deal. Again, it's not a big deal to you because you're not black. You don't understand what it's like to be black. Yeah, here you are praising for a white person doing blackface. The contradictory, the obsession. This is the reason why we lose black cosplayers. Because the amount of racism, the amount of death threats, sin, because of the color of our skin. We can't change our skin. But somehow, white people can when it comes to blackface. You know, cosplay. Just want to get that through your head. Using our skin as this is a costume can wipe it off at the end of the day. But we can't wipe our skin off at the end of the day. Yes, I wish the term cosplay for everyone was cosplay for everyone. But no. Unfortunately, it's not.
Now we really need to understand why this is inappropriate behavior, because a lot of people online clearly do not understand. And I can understand why, because a large majority of the people who are claiming that there's nothing wrong with this are pretty young. And I'm going to gauge that as under 30, most definitely late teens, early 20s, but there are exceptions to the rule. So a lot of this can be based in naivete, as well as the fact that school systems are making sure that children are not being taught history, as well as a lot of this history is being removed from our museums and history books. Even Disney attempted erasing a lot of this history from their media, and it's led to students not being educated on these matters. So they walk around being absolutely clueless, and then when they overstepped something that they didn't know was there online, then they get a massive uproar of people calling them out when they didn't realize they were doing anything wrong. However, a lot of these cosplayers are not always within this category. Because I did mention those who give a lot of pushback and insist incorrectly that they're doing nothing wrong.
And then there are those people who insist it's not that big a deal, but they're also the people who want the entire world to suffer through violence, and I'd really prefer to not live in their world.
They seem to think that they have every right to paint their skin darker without seeing backlash on social media. So let's get down to why this is considered an inappropriate practice. I wanted to quickly jump in here to say, if you want to educate yourself on these topics with short videos that are small, easily digestible bites, check out Tony Weaver Jr. on TikTok, because he is an amazing creator who makes a lot of these concepts more easily understandable and entertaining for a modern audience. The practice of blackface began somewhere between the 1820s to 1830s, but due to lack of documentation, we don't necessarily know the exact start date. During this time, white artists would depict black people as tricksters or villains. Or they could also be depicted through a form of clowning, being seen as unintelligent or lazy.
Some of the images we're about to show you are very disturbing. Blackface became popular in the mid-1800s in minstrel shows when white performers darkened their faces to depict African Americans in prejudicial and offensive ways. The well-known blackface minstrel character, Jump Jim Crow, was the namesake for Jim Crow laws, the measures that enforce segregation in the South. Even black actors were forced to wear blackface in part to make white audiences feel superior. Civil rights organizations have pointed out for decades that blackface dehumanizes black people and reinforces very harmful racial stereotypes.
This kind of face paint was done with shoe polish, grease, and if they were seriously on a budget, even soot. Which is why it makes painting your face a solid black, obsidian black, inappropriate as well. Because that was the practice. This form of stereotyping makeup was also recognized through the form of thickening your lips using the face paint, which is a shape of makeup we see all too regularly on clowns in the modern day. However, clowns were not solely a racist stereotype. The exaggerated features and costumes actually originated from medieval gestures, and the white face paint that we know now, it actually comes from the Italian Commedia dell'arte, if I said that correctly, I think I did, for the Harlequins, for the practice of Harlequins in the 1600s. Mimes and similar practices in ancient Greece for theater were characters that were stereotypically recognized as buffoons and always the butt of the joke. As this genre of character already existed, it was very easy for racist opinions to be blended in with that and mutate into a form that matched the public's opinion as well as character stereotypes that already existed, leading to extremely hateful and hurtful depictions. The three main types of clown face paint documented as we know by the 1940s are whiteface, August, and tramp. Hopefully I said August correctly. I am not positive because whiteface being similar to Harley Quinn, but further distinctions between classic whiteface and with its more delicate features and grotesque, which tends to be more exaggerated and colorful. August does not fully cover the face and usually highlights only the eyes and mouth. The tramp clown likewise uses white makeup around the eyes and mouth, with the addition of a grease paint beard for male-presenting characters. The latter is more easily identifiable by the tattered and scruffy costume. The tattered clown is considered an American creation, with the most recognizable characters being played by Emmett Kelly and Red Skeleton. Now, the tramp clown could also be considered a racist stereotype because during that time, 30s, 40s, the homeless community was largely made up of colored people. Therefore, the tattered clothes, the grease paint, which we already talked about, it all could combine into a stereotype that people were already expecting and thought of in their own minds. Therefore, the tattered clothing and grease paint could all be combined into a form of mockery. Now let's rewind back to the 1800s because even black actors were asked to wear blackface in order to push across that stereotype that audiences were already expecting and looking for. To say that face paint and cosplay is not political is erasing the entire history behind everything that we practice now. While EBSCO claims that this practice started dying out in the 50s and 60s thanks to the movements that were happening during that time that were creating better equality, the BBC black and white minstrel show was not scrapped until 1978. People are acting like this happened an eternity ago, except for those of us who are 90s babies. Our parents were still watching this stuff. Even some of our modern characters that we know and love today practiced in blackface at some point if the character is old enough. Because the practice of blackface was so popular, it made your cartoon characters more popular. Doug? You choose now? Afro. I don't know where you think you're going. I have a whole setup here. Do you need a pet? Come for pets? Come for pets? There you go. Go lay down somewhere. You grumpy old man. Because blackface was so popular, it made your cartoon characters even more popular if they were taking aspects from that practice. The whole reason characters like Mickey Mouse and Felix the Cat wear white gloves is because this was a practice in blackface, making their hands stand out against their black face paint and usually a black outfit that they were wearing. Even Bugs Bunny participated in this for a little bit, and the original Scooby-Doo has some racial stereotypes of its own. It sadly became a very common practice, and when a garden of weeds are this big and have been going on for this long, it's gonna take a while to weed that garden out. Are you out of water? What are you doing? Do you need water? No, you're good. You have water. Star Trek has been known to take part in blackface as well, but this also stems from the history of stereotyping various races in order to claim that Hollywood is providing representation. The original series from the 60s is often labeled as taking part in blackface for the race of the Klingons. However, this was actually technically yellowface. The original design of the Klingons was based upon communist Russians, personality-wise, and communist China, visually. Their makeup and hair being based off of Genghis Khan because the creator of the show, Gene Roddenberry, fought in the war, Pearl Harbor, and saw Asian people as his own worst enemy. While this show has some amazing positive representation, especially for the 60s. I mean, Uhura, badass queen, and Sulu, our sword-fighting baddie, yes. Including that kiss. And they even made episodes about going against racism, like The Battlefield. However, they did miss some points there, so you can check out Steve's video for that, because he does a whole essay on that, and we do not have time for it today. We're moving on. Jean's own racist prejudices... Prejudices... Yeah, go lay down. Stop staggering around. Go lay down. Go lay down. Go couch. Go hop up. Oh, get that leg up there. There you go. Let's see if I can get footage of him. He doesn't like me filming him. I don't know if we can get this. There's a grumpy old man on the couch. Keeps interrupting my filming. Gene's own racist prejudices got the best of him while making the original series. However, this was changed in 1979 for the motion picture. Maybe not for the better, though. This is where it really appears to become more blackface by the definition that I listed previously. The Klingon skin was darkened, their foreheads were given ridges, and their teeth were sharpened. Their aggression was also increased, and they became far more violent and bloodthirsty. In 87, once we had our regularly appearing lovable Klingon in Next Generation, portrayed by Michael Dorn, the skin color really began to appear more like blackface when Michael was able to use his own skin tone for the character. By comparison, this was now blackface. So most of the media I just mentioned are most definitely a product of their time. However, plenty of people are still taking on this practice and encouraging the discriminatory behavior, allowing the stereotype to live on, even though collectively by now we all know this behavior is inappropriate. Then there's the practice of cosplaying non-human characters, painting your face completely black because that is the color of the character. Obsidian black. So I'll let my mutual Ari take it away on this one because she described it perfectly.
Now, where I think the water gets a bit murky are characters that are inherently not human. You know, people make a lot of jokes that Vegeta would get invited to, Piccolo would get invited to the cookout because he's like, and that he would get an N-word card or whatever. Though those jokes are obviously jokes, but he's an alien. What are we talking about? He's freaking green. Someone like Venom. And I did have to look up, because I've never seen Hazbin Hotel, so I had to look up this character. Sir Pentious that you mentioned. Those characters are literally black. Like, actually just the color black. Where I think it gets murky is the fact that black and brown cosplayers have been portrayed negatively by using literal black paint. So it gets murky to define like what is harmful and what is not harmful, and we're literally talking about the color black because no, someone cannot draw me if they wanted to draw a portrait and take black paint and say, that's you. That's definitely your skin color. Because no, my skin is brown. When we talk about race, we are defined as black people, but you cannot take a black crayon, a black marker, black paint, or whatever have you, and say that is representative of the skin color of this race. However, that is what was done as a means of being harmful and hurtful because that is the color that is associated with brown folk. And so that's where it becomes hard to say because no, these people aren't wrong. Venom's black. Sir Pentious is literally black, and I mean the literal color black. But unfortunately, there is so much trauma that has been associated with that color in representing black people that it becomes hard. So that's why I say that I think it becomes difficult when we're talking about characters who are literally inhuman, absolutely inhuman. And saying that there is a clear answer when we're talking about non-human species that are black in the literal color sense. That's where I think the water gets murky. And I think the real answer is that there is a lot of hurt that's been done to, black people by utilizing and weaponizing a literal fucking color because it was used in a negative light. And I think that's where people get up in arms when they see cosplayers painting themselves literally black when it's an alien we're talking about here.
I also messaged 3 Serpentious cosplayers, and even though I could not find the messages anymore. They're completely gone. But what they did say was that all of them usually go for a obviously gray base, and then the details of the scales are black, usually using the technique of fishnets or hairnet to get the scale texture in. That way the base face paint is not blackface. I mentioned Disney earlier, and we're going to come back to it now, because Disney has plenty of references to blackface and other racist stereotypes throughout their films before the 80s. Fantasia came out in 1940 and depicted a little slave centaur in the centaur segment. No, there were 2 of them. What am I talking about? And it depicted slave centaurs working for the white centaurs in the centaur segment. And then these characters were cut out later on to attempt to appeal to the modern audience. However, my personal feeling on this is that even though the characters being originally included at all in this manner is inappropriate, it's even more inappropriate to cut them out and ignore the history. Again, we are looking at history being erased with people attempting to say, no, we didn't do that. We weren't being dumb and mean. And now we're seeing it on the internet again and again and again. Therefore, children are not being educated in a way that they can make their own opinions on this topic. And then we have the screwy situations that we're dealing with. Completely removing the Native American scene from Peter Pan actually chops up the movie quite a bit, and we lose a big chunk that seemed pretty important. This also includes removing the scene from Lady and the Tramp with the Siamese cats. We would jump from one scene to Lady being in the basement, and we don't frickin' know why! As well as the scene from Dumbo, where we see slaves working on the circus tent. And to cut out that scene completely disrespects the workers who were involved in circuses back then. Who was doing all the back-breaking work while the white people were sitting on their butts? Which is why I feel it is more important to keep the media as it is, but use it as a learning opportunity. Teach kids why characters were depicted this way and why it is better to not do so in modern times. Help them understand why so many discriminatory depictions are in our media that's less than 50 years old. It really was not that long ago. Because we're still facing those same problems today. And originally, they were just packaged differently. But now, because of the blackface cosplayers, it's pretty blatant again. Along with this topic comes the question of, is whiteface a thing? While interviewing creators as well as grabbing their videos for commentary, a lot of black creators claim that whiteface does not exist. But by name, as I mentioned before, whiteface is a term for clown face paint. However, we are really more so looking for the practice where whiteface is used as a mockery, as compared to its counterpart of blackface. Now, TMZ has actually had multiple segments showing people doing this practice. However, it does not have the same historical connotation to it. In one segment from TMZ, Harvey and Charles were actually having the conversation asking if whiteface was really a thing. And I love how Charles explained it, because Charles said that whiteface is punching up and blackface is punching down. Great way to explain it. However, I personally would also just like to say, why are we punching at all? Stop hitting. Mom said it's not okay to hit. But this is also why a lot of people would say it does not exist, because it does not have the same history or connotations.
You know, historically, there are times where, in order to make fun of black and brown people, people would literally paint themselves black. And, you know, it was in a means of making fun and to make a group feel less than, right? And if we talk about any of the isms, you know, racism, sexism, and the phobias, you know, homophobia, transphobia, X, Y, and Z, those came about, and you can say that any particular group falls in that category because it comes from a historical standpoint. Historically, these groups have been made to feel other, and there is no such thing as racism against white people because there's no historical time frame where that was true. And so, you know, with that being the case, you know, this isn't something that was done, like painting, you know, when dark-skinned cosplayers or POC cosplayers in general say they want to cosplay the marionette. I've been seeing a lot of marionette cosplays recently. Marionettes, clowns, things like that. Those are separate categories. That's not something that was ever done to poke fun or make fun at a group, or of a group rather. Those are things that they are separate, and they were never used as a means to make another group feel less than. Whereas if we're talking about black paint, or, you know, brown paint, or even the microaggression of, you know, during the summer, when people are like, oh my god, look, I'm almost as dark as you. No, that can be true, but also, you know, so it's like, it comes down to, for me, a historical standpoint. You know, was this a thing that was ever used to make another group feel less than, or feel othered, or feel as though they didn't belong? Yes or no? And in this case, where we're talking about POC cosplayers using clown white paint, or cosplaying, what's his name? Pennywise, or the marionette, or I can't think of anybody else right. Oh, that character from Has Been Hotel. I don't watch it, so I don't know their name. It is inherently different, in my opinion. But that is also why earlier I said, when we're talking about things that are literally non-human, like Venom, that becomes murky, because it's like, it's not meant to poke fun. Venom is literally just a black alien, but unfortunately it comes with the connotations of traumas and hurt that has been bestowed upon a group.
We can all have a good laugh at whiteface, even if it seems a little inappropriate. It is not to the same degree of historical significance. Whiteface is a much more modern concept, where it's a joke, but we can all laugh at it. Blackface was very purposely meant to be hurtful and discriminatory. So, what happens when somebody combines the practice of blackface with wearing a lock wig?
Don't worry, we're gonna make it. We've been looking for clues to find Clay.
Oh, I'm sorry, the clue board? You mean my clue board? That I made? We like the clue board now?
I'll be honest and say that originally I did not see anything wrong with the cosplay, but also, originally, I was not aware that they had darkened their skin for Jabber.
Cosplay is for everyone does not mean do blackface. First, we had that Jabber cosplayer that felt they had to paint themselves darker to be the character, and now someone's gone a bit further. Black cosplayers tried to explain why blackface is offensive and its overall negative history. And a surprising amount of people responded basically saying, she doesn't have to respect blackface rules. She's not even from your country. Cosplay is for everybody! But when East Asian anime fans mentioned that the symbols on Tanjiro's earrings were very close to one representing a World War II tragedy, the community acted accordingly. To this day, people cosplaying German characters avoid Mustache Man iconography. Cosplayers actually pay a lot of attention to cultural sensitivity when it's not about the black community, which is why right now, Cosplay is not for everybody. Most black cosplayers can't even post without getting called racial slurs. They get blacklisted by agencies, and we've lost very kind people to racist bullies. Cosplay should be for everybody, but right now it's not. And if you feel your ability to do blackface is more important than doing your part to create a healthier community, go get some therapy!
And the practice of blackface is appalling and disrespectful. However, a lot of the response videos I was seeing were all talking about the wig and not even mentioning the face paint. Technically, the combination of the wig with the face paint makes this blackface by definition. However, people absolutely erupted over this wig. Now, I definitely can see why it is insulting to see someone mimic your culture in that way.
And I get it. The beauty in our culture and traditions fascinates you. There's just one problem. We are not costumes. Let me explain the difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation. Cultural appropriation is when someone takes elements from a culture not their own and remakes and reduces it into a meaningless pop cultural item. On the other hand, cultural appreciation truly honors our nation's arts and cultures. When you appreciate, you take the time to learn and interact, to gain understanding of a culture or cultures different from your own.
Furthermore, I would say that this creator went above and beyond to be disrespectful by making a response video claiming that people's feelings of being insulted were not valid because apparently they're insulting plants too. No, babe. You are being completely tone deaf, purposely obtuse, and you very specifically stepped over a pretty solid line that a lot of people are pointing out to you now, of which you are pretending not to see. So before I get too deep into this conversation, here is a creator who actually got down to the root of this conversation.
Every time I see somebody address the Jabber cosplay, they never say what they supposed to say, right? Because it's not about the fact of the dreads for me or the cosplay. It's the fact that y'all don't accept black people in any community, but y'all like to mimic us, right? And I mean flooding the comments. You don't sound like Naruto because you're black. Naruto's not black, so you can't sound like him. You sound like the hood version of Naruto. No, you can't cosplay nobody black if you're not going to accept black people in the space. I'm sorry. That's weird to me. And the stupid arguments I see is, oh, well, black people cosplay white people. Do you walk around with hair like Goku in real life? No, you don't. Do you walk around with a hairline like Vegeta in real life? No, you don't. A black man can roll out of bed with no effort whatsoever and cosplay Jabber. And y'all still don't give us credit and say Jabber isn't black. Well, if that's the case, why every time y'all cosplay Jabber, y'all hashtag black? Y'all hashtagging black. Stop doing that very thing right there. Because realistically, I'm not offended. What other hairstyle she was supposed to wear? Because if you wouldn't have worn them dreads, it was giving Pirates of the Caribbean to me. It's just really simple. Once we start accepting everybody in the anime community, not just certain race and certain people, then we can move on from that.
Although I was really confused as to why so many creators were talking about the wig and not the face paint, I did see other creators mention the Rastafarian movement and why those dreads are important in that way to that movement, which was very important to see. However, plenty of creators were missing that mark. Bob Marley was a massive icon in this movement in the 70s and made Locs a symbol of rebellion and freedom. People in the comments would bring up the Vikings, and plenty of creators would claim that this does not matter, but they're also cherry-picking their information to get to say what they want to, while completely ignoring the history behind Locs, because they were very important to the Native Americans and plenty of other cultures in a spiritual sense. Some of those videos would go so far as to claim that Locs are solely for black people, which is completely incorrect. Not all of them, mind you, but there were enough that it was driving me insane. Because this is discriminatory across a massive number of communities who all wore Locs as a way to practice their spirituality, before long distance travel was even an option for them to be able to all chat with each other and agree that that's what locks were for. So I did some research. It is time for some history on hair. The oldest documentation we have of locks being depicted in writing and in art is from 1500 BC, where the Hindu god Lord Shiva is described as wearing a hairstyle called jata, or locks of matted hair. And this hairstyle is still common practice today in India and for those who practice Hinduism. Because this hairstyle was considered to be a way to facilitate the cosmic energy flow and help elevate our consciousness. Around the same era, Greek art also depicts fighters fighting with their hair in locks. Technically, the only documentation we have of Vikings for their hairstyles is that their hair was described as ropes. Therefore, it could very easily have been braids, we don't know for sure. However, it is very possible that some of them did have locks because that is something hair just naturally does when you do not comb it. I can attest, I was a dog groomer for 6 years, and hair naturally does that. You have no idea how many people would just let their dogs lock, thinking that would be an easier way to care for them, and then realize that they are incapable of caring for the locks. And then we have to break up those mats very slowly and carefully and get them cleaned and take them back to non-locks. It is simply something hair does, but plenty of hairstyles do it better or not so well, depending on the texture and thickness. Fast forward to the 1800s, we have plenty of documentation of Native Americans also wearing locks, and if you saw any natives with this hairstyle, it usually meant that they were either a shaman or some form of spiritual leader. The term dreadlock, though, is now considered politically incorrect due to the origin story of the name. However, we do not actually have an exact answer on that. Because one story is that the hairstyle was used by warriors who were striking fear or dread into the hearts of their enemies, while another story claims that white pirates stealing the black people claimed that their hairstyle was dreadful, therefore making it sound insulting, leading to the term lock being used more commonly now. Because a wide variety of cultures all across the world place spiritual significance on this hairstyle before they even had the option to chat with each other long distance, that's why it's insane to me for a singular culture to immediately adopt this hairstyle and say, no, it's only mine, we can't have anyone else using it. It very much reminds me of, if anyone has watched Tasting History, I love his channel. There are a number of dishes where communities claim that they created it, even though you can look back 100 years and there's another artist who made the same dish, or at least similar. Or if you even want to think about who takes credit for making inventions, like the telephone. It's not the guy who gets the credit all the time. Or the light bulb. Due to the lack of documentation once something is far enough back, it seems crazy to me for any one community or person to take claim on something that we don't actually know the answer, and there's no easy way for us to find it out. Now, not all response videos were claiming that locks are only for black people. That was a very specific little community who was doing so. And those videos did seem to be coming from very young creators, often white, and occasionally darker skinned, who were very likely undereducated in the topic. Which is why I wanted to make this video, because I would prefer creators at least look at the Wikipedia page to do a little research on some historical topics if they're going to be talking about them. Disclaimer, because I realize that some people might think that this train has gotten derailed with this segment, but I am trying to make a point. Because by looking at the reverse side of this argument, I think I might have figured out why, at least within the minefield that is TikTok, why blackface cosplay came up again. So please stick with me, we're getting there. Because this is the perspective from my own personal experience. Personally, I have been wanting to cosplay Calypso from Pirates of the Caribbean for years. I have about 95% of the materials to make this costume. She is ready to be built. However, I keep waiting on it because things like this just keep happening. And no matter how I cosplay her, I'm gonna get people telling me that I'm racist because my skin is not the same color as the actress who played her. And before anyone argues that white people never get in trouble for cosplaying characters of other ethnicities than their own, please go check the comments section of any Spider-Verse cosplayer who does Miles Morales or Spider-Punk who are not black. They regularly have people insisting they're not allowed to cosplay the character because their skin color does not match. And I personally have been told that I'm not allowed to cosplay Claudine or Dr. Facilier because I am a pasty-ash Irish. While the black community most definitely and sincerely gets the worst of this kind of discrimination based upon their skin color in the cosplay community, and all over the world in reality, it is not completely impossible for white cosplayers to get a little bit of the table scraps of discrimination as well. Therefore, I personally feel that telling anyone that they are not allowed to cosplay some character because of their ethnicity or their gender, or their sexuality, or their religion, or their body type, or their body shape, or their weight, or has earned you the right. This is why I give a really hard disagree on anyone saying that any character is solely for a singular race to cosplay. Based upon this example, we have Black Panther and Pocahontas. I have had multiple people tell me I'm not allowed to cosplay Pocahontas, and yet I have multiple native bloodlines running through my veins. Therefore, you don't actually know if a person is specifically part of that community or not unless you ask. And B, who is going to draw that line? Who is going to be policing this rule? Where is that line drawn? Are we going to say that it stops at number 5 from Codename Kids Next Door? Her being black seems pretty important. Or maybe Tiana? Go ahead and make all those little Disney princesses cry because their skin color does not match the character and they don't get to play dress up. And all of the princess cosplayers have a little princess inside them too, so no, we are not drawing the line at age either. Or if we look at Jubilee from X-Men, are only Asian people allowed to cosplay her? But wait, she's Chinese American, so are we going to get super specific and say that only Chinese Americans are allowed to dress up as her? Do you realize how ridiculous this gets the longer we go?
You know, we are getting this representation in this media that has very frequently portrayed Black and brown folk and other marginalized groups in very disparaging ways. And getting this representation means so much to all of us in whatever marginalized group we're talking about here. And no one cares about accuracy. It's a matter of, hey, this representation has finally come. Let's celebrate it and not do things that are harmful.
I personally believe that we should get to dress up as whatever freaking character we want, no matter who we love, what our bodies look like, what our skin color is, so on and so forth. That may sound a little naive, but I would much prefer to live in that world than live in a world where we are hating on each other so hard and so often. Not completely possible, yeah, I know. but we could at least stop making arbitrary rules based on personal preference and experiences and let people live their lives. Because in all honesty, those rules that you are making up are not going to be able to be upheld or policed in any way. To elaborate on this conversation, I will allow Charlie to take it away, as well as Amala's reaction to his video.
We're going to react to a mega viral video by Charlie Chan. This got 3.8 million views, titled "What Are We Doing to White People?"
That we're asking white people not only to ignore, but to accept the rising tide of racial hatred against white people. Nowadays, we say that not seeing color is racism, that you must see color. But the more I see how things are unfolding, the more I'm convinced that this is wrong.
You can direct all of your racial hatred and bigotry towards white people, and virtually nothing will be done about it. And he talks about this idea of race neutrality versus seeing race all the time. The colorblind future is, I think, what we should be moving towards, because your race says nothing about you. It says nothing about how good of a person you are, how bad of a person you are, your morals, your values, anything. It says nothing about you as a person. Yet we are now pushing this idea that we have to talk about race and that it must constantly be a part of our conversations. And I just reject that. I think neutrality is going to be the future, where we say race has nothing to do with who you are or what you are, and we can look beyond that.
And we're being taught that this double standard is not wrong, that it is rather a form of empowerment. They'll attribute negative experiences that they've had with white people to their whiteness. You had an argument in line at the grocery store with a white person. They were acting entitled because they were white. A white driver cut you off when you were driving. They need to check their white privilege. Your actions, your conduct, and your existence, in other words, boil down to your whiteness.
This very personally spoke to me because as a cashier at Target, I had to deal with a lot of stuck-up guests who gave me a hard time. And a good collection of those guests were people who were in this large family that spanned across our whole small town. They had a decent amount of money, and every time they saw me running self-check, register, or guest service, they would go out of their way to find my Latina coworker, drag her over, and demand she open another register. Because what they would say every single time is, no, we don't want the white girl. We know that she's going to mess up, so we need you to do it. For context, I was the fastest cashier there, and I was the second most experienced next to somebody who was in their 50s, and most of our guests would ask where I was on days when I had off. People would ask for me by name because they knew I'd get them out of there quickly. So when anyone from this family would say, no, we don't want the white girl, she'll screw it up, my Latina coworker would always ask, have you ever had her run a register for you? Do you know? Okay, excuse me, I have to get back to work. And then whoever from the family is like, no. We would never have this cashier work for us because she's white. So we need someone who is ethnic. Do you have any Asian cashiers? Preferably Chinese. Or I guess at least we could take Japanese. This was a very large family who was very well off, and I feel like no matter what job I had, I could never get away from their prejudices.
Is that no matter how many anecdotes I share, they are just that, anecdotes. And people who refuse to believe that this is happening will just chalk it up to my experience as being a fluke. Or worse yet, they'll say I'm lying. So I've compiled some TikTok videos.
It's funny because, you know, if you want to find examples of this sort of stuff, TikTok is probably the best place to go. I mean, it's a cesspool for racial hatred against white people, racial hatred being spewed at other people. And white people in particular are bearing the brunt of it. As I said before, if you want to throw racial hatred at somebody, white person is the one to pick because nobody will do anything about it. And it comes from this idea that because maybe white people were favored in history or there was racial bias in history towards people of color, we reconcile that and make up for it by racially discriminating against white people in the present. And to me, that's not the answer. The answer is, again, race neutrality. If you are anti-racism, if you are anti-segregation, then stop perpetuating it.
Another personal tidbit of mine, except this one is when I was working at a hardware store. A woman came up to me and said she needed to return a light bulb because it stopped working after 6 months. I told her we would not be able to return it, and she's like, no, you need to return it because it stopped working. Then I explained to her that I can't do returns at my register and I would have to send her to guest service to be able to do the return. She told me, I'll need you to stop using such big language with me because English is not my first language, I speak Spanish. I said, okay. then I'll still need to send you to that desk, guest service, because I am not bilingual. My Spanish isn't very good. And so we have a bilingual coworker over there who can speak with you in Spanish. She started screaming at the top of her lungs that I was racist. She used the R word to get me in trouble with my managers and to get what she wanted. Because who returns a light bulb after 6 months? I tried to argue with my managers that they shouldn't give her what she wanted because she's just throwing a little tantrum. But no, she got the refund for a pack of 6 light bulbs because 1 stopped working. This is not okay, and this woman still does this to this day. She drives everybody nuts on the buses, insisting that everyone on the bus is racist. No matter who they are, what they did, even if they're just sitting quietly. Not cool, not okay, and it is insane to me that people can use the R word over any white person, and it automatically gets them what they want.
Oh, gosh. Tell me you don't know anything about history without telling me you don't know anything about history. And it's so interesting that she's saying white people need to learn the message that we all bleed red while being blatantly racist in this entire video. Oh my gosh. Oh, anti-white racism. You know, people hate to hear that, right? And they'll say there's no such thing as being racist towards a white person because they hold all the power, they hold all the privilege. Do y'all need more examples? Because this is pretty hefty. If you are a danger simply by existing, not by being a bad person, being a racist person, being a bigot, but simply by being born white, how do you solve a problem of people existing? Just a question. Do you see the slippery slope that you exist on if you allow this rhetoric to continue without calling people out, without saying that it's wrong? You get ideas like this, that white people needing to die is not a racist statement.
Dear white people, people of color cannot be racist.
When I hear arguments like this, I get why some people question the state of education in America. It is frustrating that living in one of the most successful countries in the world, we still struggle with basic definitions. People talk about systemic or institutional racism like it's the only form of racism that exists. That is part of why we are so divided. They don't acknowledge that interpersonal racism exists too. So many people engage in racist behavior. They don't treat others like they want to be treated because of their race. That is racism. You don't need institutional power to hate someone because of the color of their skin.
Racism is not a system. It's simply thinking that a race is inferior or superior simply by just having that prejudice and that discriminatory mindset. So yes, you can be racist towards white people. It has nothing to do with powers and systems. And even if it did, Black people, people of color, Asians, whatever, have lots of power and lots of privilege. Really, by just living in America, there are many who believe that white people are inherently racist. And there seems to be this inability with people who think like this to separate history from the present day. Does it really make sense to punish people who are living in the present for things that were done in the past?
Even if their ancestors were the ones doing the bullying in the past, if in modern day they are attempting to fix these bridges that were burned, why is it okay to say you still get to be bullied because your great-great-grandparent was a horrible, awful person? Just suck it up, buttercup. And this goes for every community and skin color, because this also happens in smaller circles where it's family versus family. I do not believe that we should have to suffer the consequences of our great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, even though sadly that often happens.
Not all white Americans descend from families that lived in the United States during the era of slavery. And not all white Americans today can be held personally responsible for it. No one should be expected to carry guilt for a past they had no part in creating. Millions of white Americans today are descended from immigrants who arrived long after slavery ended in 1865. Many of their ancestors came through Ellis Island in the late 1800s and early 1900s from places like Ireland, Italy, Poland, Greece, and Eastern Europe. When those families arrived, they weren't plantation owners. They were often poor immigrants looking for work, living in crowded rooms and working dangerous jobs in factories, mines, mills, and railroads. Their story is part of American history too. Learn history instead of learning racism.
And for those people to convince themselves that this is not racial discrimination, they play mind tricks and word games.
Yep.
They use phrases and talking points like punching up. You can't be racist to white people. You can't oppress the oppressor, meaning I'm acting oppressively, but I've designated you as the oppressor, so everything goes. Or Abramax Candy's infamous words, the only way to remedy past discrimination is current discrimination. Or when people say things like, what we're doing to white people is not racism because racism is prejudice plus power and we don't have the power. They use all this mind-bending apparatus to delude themselves into believing what they're doing faces no moral quandary.
Absolutely. So they've safeguarded their own racist opinions. And you know what this leads to? Moral atrocities. That's what it leads to. When you feed into this delusion that you cannot be racist and you cannot be discriminatory, even though you are doing racist and discriminatory things, guess what? The threshold gets higher and higher and higher for what you're able to do and justify.
It's racial revenge. We experienced it. You experienced it too. See how you like it.
And it's funny because when they say we experienced it, most of them have not experienced it. Most of them have lived in a free and equal America, but they feel somehow just deeply related to what their ancestors have gone through, and they feel no need to recognize the progress that we have gone through as a country and as just a civilization at large. No recognition of progress. Always this deep identifying with the struggles of ancestors that they have not experienced themselves. And, you know, people laugh when I say, you know, if we continue on this track in 50 years, there's going to be a civil rights movement for white people. I stand by that statement. If something is not done to alleviate the division that we're feeling right now and educate people on why they should not have so much hatred for white people in our current world, the cycle will continue. Even the playing field, let it be, move forward with neutrality, and treat everybody with kindness and respect. But people are choosing not to do that. They are choosing, in fact, to do the very same things that they're criticizing. If a white person were to make this very same video titled, "What are we doing to white people?" I wonder what the reception would be. I'm sure a lot of people would feel far more comfortable being blatantly racist in the comments, which just goes to show that what Charlie is talking about in this video is very clear. It's true. It's happening. And we need to do better.
This part of the conversation in discrimination is often ignored because it is a newer development. Discrimination in itself is horrible. And then it becomes an awful muddled puddle of yuck when any one community is considered to be excluded from the bullying, or at least not allowed to talk about the fact that they're being bullied. Therefore, I wanted to bring Charlie and Amala's videos into this because plenty of people would claim that I don't have room to talk because of my skin color. However, if we take my color away from this and I just make a post saying someone said that I'm not allowed to cosplay a character because of my skin color, what are we going to call that? At least discrimination.
And this is why I think so many TikTok cosplayers have started doing blackface. The pendulum swung so extremely one direction that it's swinging back the other direction now, because that tiny community that is TikTok moves so quickly, and the internet itself moves so quickly, that we've just got this thing swinging like crazy back and forth, back and forth, back and forth on which race is getting picked on at whatever time.
With me wanting to cosplay Calypso, I messaged 5 of my Instagram cosplay friends who are black to see what their opinion on the idea was. Now, I honestly thought I would get a no from 4 of them, but surprisingly, I got a heck yes from 4 of them. 4 of them all said that they thought me doing a lock wig would actually be great because they knew that I would be making educational videos on why her hair is important and what her culture was like and what religion she practices, especially since she's considered in the movie a sea witch. The only response I got that was a slight no was one friend who was like, you know, if you don't want to deal with the hate, do bubble braids. However, if you're willing to deal with the hate, it would be pretty awesome to have educational videos out on this topic. The thing is, when I wore my Captain Jack Sparrow cosplay, nobody said anything about his locks because he's played by a white actor and his locks are not based on a religion or cultural ethnicity, anything like that. It is just because hair naturally does that when you do not comb it, and it would be a lot easier for a pirate to care for their hair if it was in that shape. Calypso's hair, on the other hand, is heavily steeped in cultural and religious significance.
And this is to say, I don't know where people get off on saying that Jabber is not black, because his hair is most definitely a black man's hair. Any simple search engine search on this character will tell you that the author has said multiple times that this character is Afro-Latino. And if you watch the subbed version of the anime, you can actually hear his accent through the Japanese language, but we lose that accent in the dubbed version.
So, this is where Locs would become a form of provocative art. Plenty of artists believe that they are just gonna make their art and people are gonna have to deal with it. However, this is with the purpose and knowledge of knowing that they are going to be ruffling some feathers when they release that art. And that is not what these current blackface cosplayers are doing, because they're far too busy going, oh no, it's not, I'm not doing anything wrong. Liars. Because they're over here completely denying the fact that it is rage bait. The real provocative artists are the ones who do the art with the purpose of starting a conversation. This way it gets people talking and it gets them to reconsider some of their beliefs. One of my favorite provocative artists is Marina. She is amazing at doing performing art, and she uses her own body for a lot of this, which is already taboo.
She has even made statements in art pieces in order to make people question their religion and their government.
In '74, she created an art piece where she laid out items and then allowed the audience to do whatever they wanted to her without her reacting and no consequences afterwards. This put her in a very dangerous situation, but it was also an amazing and risky experiment on human behavior. The difference being that she knew that this was provocative art, and she chose to release it to prove a point and get people talking. Similar can be said about Jamie Foxx with his preference of ethnicity mimicking in his artwork. He and his actors know that this is considered a taboo art form, and they still go through with it to start a conversation. However, I also believe that for Jamie, it's a lot more of, I'm an artist and I get to make whatever art I want and y'all just gotta deal with it. Sadly, none of my Instagram friends wanted their usernames mentioned in this segment of the video because it's scary to have the option and possibility of the whole world knowing that you have the opinion that it is not completely out of bounds for a white person to have locks. With the most popular opinion being absolutely no locks for white people whatsoever, it would seem very out of character to have a black person go, actually, I don't see a massive problem with it. And while it's a difficult take to swallow, plenty of people have shared this opinion. And groups like to pretend like it's only a white opinion. However, it is not only a white opinion.
Watch this beat go, we hooligan. There's too much nuance on this topic to do a short form content video, but I'm gonna do my best. Russian cosplayer Terumi cosplay Jabber using a dreadlock wig, and people are now calling her irresponsible and an appropriator. Dreads have culture tied to them, with the earliest of findings being throughout multiple locations, dreads were seen as a sign of spirituality and wisdom. When combined with Bob Marley's music in the 70s, they became a symbol of rebellion against European domination and racism. And many people who aren't black that wear dreads have been seen perpetuating belief in black stereotypes by actions such as throwing up gang signs and sagging their pants. And those exact individuals tend to not like black people. And black people have been getting flack for having their natural hair for generations upon generations, so I understand where the rage is coming from. But this, to me, is not that. She's not feeding a stereotype, she's not saying anything derogatory, and she's not hating on black people. She saw a cool character and cosplayed that exact character. Now, if she cosplayed characters with racist designs and kept those designs in, or she darkened her skin and just straight up did blackface, then this would be a very different video. But as it stands, she's just cosplaying. I cannot stand on the principle that I can cosplay whomever I want and that cosplay is for everyone, and then do a complete 180 when somebody else does the exact same thing. The one thing I will ask of Terumi is that when you see black cosplayers getting harassed in their videos, you defend them like I'm defending you. Because adults playing dress up is supposed to be fun, not hostile. And for the record, that Jabber cosplay is cool as hell. I don't care what anybody says.
However, I will say that most black creators who do share this opinion are either male cosplayers or they are in the fandom space, but they do not cosplay.
I would like to preface this by saying I have never put on a cosplay a day in my life. However, I do cosplay. I do watch a lot of anime, conventions, shit like that, right? So I'm not new to this. I'm not new to this community. I see the bullshit that happens inside this community. And I just want to say something. I do want to speak on this whole Jabber situation, especially because I feel like I had the proper credentials to speak on this situation, okay? I'm so sick and tired of black people complaining about literally fucking anything that they can complain about. Surprisingly, a lot of the complaints I've been seeing about these non-black people cosplaying as Jabber from, I'll put the anime name somewhere right here. A lot of the issues that I am seeing, surprisingly, are not even having to do with the cosplayer's race, but with the hairstyle that the cosplayer is using, okay? A lot of these people, a lot of them, right, mind you, not even cosplayers themselves. They just happen to watch anime or happen to be black, either or, right, are saying that, oh, you could have done bubble braids instead of doing locks. Why would they do that when Jabber does not have bubble braids? He has locks. First of all, that makes no sense. Second, do y'all remember, I don't know if it was like a year ago, 2 years ago, like white, and y'all really dragged her for that. But she decided to do a Cat Noir cosplay, and she decided not to do the black skin because she didn't want to be in trouble for doing blackface. And the black cosplay community dragged her for that because it was more offensive that she didn't do the black skin. But had she had done the black skin, okay. See, this is my issue when it comes to the black community in any and all spaces. Y'all just want to fucking complain. Y'all are never fucking happy with anything. Y'all are given an inch, y'all take a mile, and then it gets ruined, and that inch gets taken back, and then y'all still continue to complain because y'all are never fucking satisfied. Y'all are never fucking satisfied with anything. With anything. Now, let's just say that a cosplayer had gotten on here, had been the first to, done, a Jabber had been the first to do a Jabber cosplay, right? And they had decided to do bubble braids instead of locks because they did not want to offend the black community. You know what would have happened? Because black people on the internet are fucking insufferable. They would have gotten dragged because Jabber doesn't have bubble braids, he has locks. And by you doing bubble braids, you're erasing a part of his black identity. That's what would have happened. And you can't even fucking tell me that I'm wrong. You can't even tell me that I'm wrong. You can't. And before anybody says, well then, maybe these non-black people shouldn't try and cosplay black people. It almost sounds like
It almost sounds like that thing that black people were told where they shouldn't cosplay characters that aren't black. Whoa. Maybe all these characters are fucking fictional, and it doesn't really fucking matter at the end of the day. They're pixels. They were drawn with pencil on a piece of fucking paper. If I burnt the paper, no more. Like, what are we doing? It's really not and never will be that fucking deep. There are bigger issues in the world than what the fuck type of hairstyle a Jabber cosplayer decide to put on their fucking head. Can we please pull our heads at our asses? Thank you very much. Have a great day.
When messaging cosplayers across various social media platforms, the masculine cosplayers very regularly said, "Cosplay is for everyone," and then added that everybody gets to cosplay anyone as long as there is no blackface. And them very blatantly saying that it means the face paint. Most of the male creators that I talked to had no problem with the lock wig and felt that it was hypocritical to say, hey, I get to wear whatever hairstyle I want in my cosplays, except you don't. Then again, every single one that said this also did not give me permission to use their usernames in the video. Again, because it is scary to put that opinion out there. This opinion is actually more popular than you would think. But plenty of creators don't advertise it because they don't want to see the backlash that would come with it. It is a more progressive opinion in a space where the past just keeps being dragged back up to the surface again and again and again every day, especially by our own president. For me personally, I believe this separation between genders is largely due to the fact that black women have had to deal with the largest majority and variety of discrimination that you could probably ever think of.
Blacks.
They used to eat us. Really?
Wait, what? Eat?
African Americans were eaten. Do they not teach this? They were eaten.
They used to skin
They used
and
to
make leather
skin
out
us
of it.
and make
Like,
leather.
why is that even a question?
The answer is absolutely yes, that white people did eat black people. You can read the book, The Delectable Negro, I'll put it here, by Vincent Woodard, to read more about that. There's also several different texts and accounts that document this, including about Christopher Columbus.
Yeah, the privilege comes from thinking that racism doesn't exist anymore. There is privilege in having a phone and being able to have access to Wi-Fi and all that good stuff, which means that there are different forms of people practicing racism. Blackface is a form of racism due to the historical context, whether the cosplayer is intending it to be a mockery or not, because of the historical connotations. The fact that you think it's a non-issue means that you have not looked at a black cosplayer's comment section. Yes, blackface is a much smaller piece of the large pie of racism, but it is what I see in my community because cosplay is my niche. This is a portion of what we're dealing with, and we'd like to fix that little part so we can start fixing the whole. It is more important for modern women to stand up for themselves and call out on this behavior so that they do not have to continue facing the same discrimination. Because it's how we can make discriminatory behavior stop. On top of the fact that hair can be a very personal thing.
My family called my locks demonic. They would call it gross, they would call it disgusting. People in the church would call it demonic, would call it disgusting. Not only locks, but I was called my hair when I would wear it out, and it was unkept. Unless you have the loosest afros, your hair is seen as unkept to so many people. And for many people, hair is just hair. But for many people, and by many people, I mean these types of people, hair is not just hair. There's a long history of hair, and how hair is treated, and how hair is seen. Hair is important to so many people. In the United States, I believe it was called the Tegan Laws, where black women were not allowed to show their natural hair. to this day, people are discriminated because of their hairstyles. And I'm not going to get into certain conversations with certain cosplayers doing X, Y, and Z, but for so many people, it is so much more than hair.
So very understandably, more femme cosplayers want to see this change happen because they were already dealing with it in their own household. They were growing up getting the sludge of self-hatred jammed into their brain over themselves and their own community by their own community. Most of the creators that I messaged about the topic of the lock wig said that they were already tired of talking about it. Which is why I am going to reference Danny's video here because she gave me permission to use it.
This white tea person decided, I'm gonna cosplay Jabber and I am going to put locks in my hair like Jabber to be super accurate. Yay! Which is boo. It's wrong to do that. It's cultural appropriation. And people are saying, but cosplay is for everyone. Yes, cosplay is for everyone, but that doesn't mean you have access to people's culture. That's where y'all don't see the point. That's still cultural appropriation. I would be lax about it if black people were not discriminated against because of our hair, leading to the Crown Act having to be passed in some of the states so that we don't get discriminated against because of our hair. And locks is a big one that people come after. But also, I cosplay Rapunzel and Blue Diamond, and I use my lock wig for that. Instead of people being like, oh my gosh, so accurate, so amazing, so gorgeous, they're like, your hair looks like spaghetti. That is really ugly. Why did you negify the cosplay? It didn't need that. It's also wrong to say to a black person that they want to eat their hair because whitey people used to cannibalize us and use our hair as pillow fluffing. And then on the other end, the white tea cosplayer, everyone's like, oh my god, you're so amazing, you're so incredible, the cosplay is great, blah, blah, blah. If there wasn't a double standard and we were not persecuted for our hair, we wouldn't be having this conversation, but oop, here we are. Also, if you're gonna defend that person, I don't need to hear your opinion. Get out. You don't understand cultural appropriation and you don't understand racism. Now, will this person learn? No, because they are a Russian cosplayer and they don't like to listen to anybody. Especially when it comes to racism and cultural appropriation. And people are like, hey, but she's not mocking, she's not doing anything wrong. You can do something with good intentions and it still be bad. Please think for a second.
The lock wig feels insulting because imitation is already equated to mockery thanks to the practice of blackface. It is very difficult to make this change in your own community when that community is pushing you out for taking part in practices that should be part of that community. I'm looking at you queers who think that trans or bi or whatever else do not fit into the rainbow because there is a massively long acronym for a reason. Let me say this plainly. The wig was not actually the problem. The real problem? The double standards.
So interesting whenever you hear cosplays for everyone because you only ever hear this in large amounts when it's a white cosplayer being defended for offending a group of people. Like I remember when K-pop Demon Hunters was popping off, a lot of people were cosplaying the characters and an Asian girl made a video saying, hey, I love that people are engaging with these people. I love that Korean people are getting, their moment. But if you're going to cosplay these Korean characters, can you remember that the Korean and, not use Japanese attire? Can you not use Chinese attire when you're cosplaying these characters? Because I feel like it's a little bit disrespectful and it pushes the stereotype that all Asian people look the same. And as a non-Asian person, I feel like this was a very reasonable video. The amount of non-Asian people in the comment section saying, you guessed it, oh, cosplay's for everyone, it's not that deep, it's just a cosplay, you're in your feelings too much, was crazy.
It's not that deep. I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this. It is. And you just told everyone that you're swimming in the shallow end. Not everyone thinks a lot, and that's okay. But due to you not thinking so much, I feel like someone does need to clue you in because you're not going to come to that realization organically. When you say that, what you're saying is, I'm allergic to thinking too hard. How do you not realize that? Maybe the curtains are just blue, and maybe you're the child that got left behind. We have tried to come back for you. You're kicking and screaming. We're saying there's an entire meal of knowledge at home for you and you're eating handfuls of dirt in the yard. You're not reading at grade level with everybody else, babe. I'm so sorry to be the one to tell you. Also, observation, the people that say that say it all the time. about multiple things, not just one thing. They're saying it all the time. And I'm always seeing this in comment sections too, where like thinking deeply is already happening. Like the person who's saying it's not that deep usually doesn't even have to do the deep thinking because someone has already done it and commented it. All you have to do is read it. Give it a tiny ponder. Small. If you can't think deep, can you think medium? Or I'll settle for light. I just can't imagine stumbling upon people having an intelligent conversation and being like, hey, everyone's thinking too much here right now. Can you guys think less like me? No, and go away. Also.
And going back to black cosplayers, when you're black or of a darker skin complexion, it's never cosplays for everyone. No, you get told, hey, if you really love these characters, if you actually love these characters, you wouldn't even try to cosplay them, because the very fact that you don't have the same skin complexion shows that you are trying to change the character or trying to make them more black when you cosplay them. Cosplay is never just for everyone. When it's a black or dark skinned person cosplaying a character, they could cosplay a character in the most respectful way possible, and the only thing be different between them and the character is their skin color, and you will see a ton of hate. It is expected that they will receive a ton of hate, whereas a white person can literally do something in their cosplay to offend a group of people that they are not a part of, and that group will literally come out and say, hey, we don't care that you're cosplaying a character that you're not the same race of, but can you please not do this thing that we find offensive? And that group will be told, hey, y'all are too sensitive, it's just a cosplay, it's not that deep. Because that's the other thing. In the other video I made, there were so many non-black people in the comment sections pushing this BS argument that black people don't want other groups of people to cosplay black characters, when literally no one ever said that. There are tons and tons of cosplays on this app of non-black people cosplaying Jabber, and if you check out their comment section, there is tons and tons of black people hyping up the cosplay, saying that they like the cosplay, and more importantly, saying that they really love it because it's respectful. All the black cosplayers were asking was, hey, can you not darken your skin and, you know, create a lock wig in order to cosplay a black character, due to the, you know, racist history of other races painting their skin black and, you know, portraying themselves as black people in order to push negative stereotypes on black people. I want you to guess if this person is black or not. But yeah, it sounds cute to say that cosplay is for everyone, but it's not for everyone, and it has never been for everyone, because if it was, the racism in the cosplay community wouldn't be so known that people outside of the cosplay community know about it.
Which brings me to our next topic. Is it cultural appropriation when the person wearing the article of clothing, jewelry, hairstyle, etc. that may appear outside of their own culture, if the wearer can actually explain the history better than most people born into the culture themselves?
Cultural appropriation is the practice of using or taking something from another culture without giving proper recognition or respect to that culture.
We have so many different kinds and types of activities that fall under the category of appropriation. Some we accept, and in fact we encourage each other to do, and others we really revile and are angry by when we see them. So the question is, like, why do we accept some practices of appropriation and why do we reject others? And the line between appreciation and appropriation is sometimes almost individual by individual, that there is no hard line, consistent ways of defining what is harmful appropriation for a lot of people. But that said, there's two issues in appropriation. One is, can you do it? And the other is, should you do it? And those are harmful when we think about the long legacy of colonialism and racism as it still affects us all.
I've been seeing a lot of hate comments saying that I'm not allowed to wear braids, so today we're going to get the public's thoughts. Do you think it's cultural appropriation when someone that looks like me wears braids? No.
No, I love it. It's cute. Baby, live your life.
Yes.
Don't worry about other people.
Yes, I believe I can say create braids. Do you think that's true?
Probably so, believe so. You look beautiful. They just judge cause how you look.
Oh, I don't think I love you.
Well, you wear whatever you want to wear.
No, it's not cultural appropriation to have braids on. Braids come from different cultures, and cultures are meant to be shared. And I feel like the people who say it's cultural appropriation don't even know the difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation. And I agree with the ladies in the video, especially the second lady that said, don't care about what people say, just live your life. Because if you go by what people say about you, you living up to the opinions they have of you or seeking validations from them to do what you want to do, especially with your hair, you will never be happy.
Now, plenty of people wear locks without knowing the full background and history of them and the spiritual or historical significance of the hairstyle. They may just wear the hairstyle because they enjoy it and they think it looks cool, because it does. But if someone who may be considered outside of that culture knows more about the historical background, why shouldn't they be able to educate people on it as well as possibly practice in it if they want to?
Is quite connected to how might drawing benefit economically, status-wise, something that is in vogue or cashing in on the creativity of another. Should you do it? Can you do it? Of course you can do anything, but why are you doing this?
Going back to something Erica said, is that we're all encouraged to appropriate. I mean, we think there are certain people who are appropriating and other people who are appropriated, but the reality is that we're all doing it. If one person appropriates negatively, one person can appropriate positively and actually open up and widen that conversation even globally. There were a couple of bands that actually dressed up as if they were African American. There was like a minstrel show.
With blackface?
With blackface,
Oh,
right?
okay.
And that's a perfect example of cultural appropriation in its worst, most negative form. This isn't about solidarity work. This isn't about expanding or having a global conversation. This is about performing ideas of race. What turns something from appreciation to appropriation, it's this collapse of the racial identity means something as a kind of performative act itself. This is what it means to be black. This is what it means to be Asian.
In Africa, this blonde lady from America, and someone had gifted her, it wasn't a sari, but it was
like a kente cloth?
Yeah, yes. And so when she wore it, people were saying, well, what are you doing with that? But I'm sitting here thinking, well, it was a gift.
Where was she wearing it though? In
well,
the US
it was probably
or
when she was back in the United States.
Oh, well, in India, and I actually felt out of place if I didn't wear a salwar kameez.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. It would be inappropriate not to. If I go into a mosque, it would be inappropriate not to cover my head. Though I'm not culturally appreciating, that's, I don't even know if I'm assimilating, it's a gesture towards respect.
So you can wear the clothing without actually, burlesquing the culture.
Right.
We move into cultural, appropriation. It's because we're not actually paying attention to the historical and meanings of the people who have these items, wear these items, who they are. And this isn't just dress up. It's a very powerful and sad story.
The difference is really education in my mind. Like if you're able to explain what this garment that you're wearing means, or the symbolism or the traditions behind it, when someone asks you, then you're wearing it with appreciation because you're using it as an opportunity to teach about a culture. At least that's how I see it in my mind.
Quick definition of cultural appropriation for the video as a baseline. Adoption of a certain language, behavior, clothing, or tradition belonging to a minority culture or social group by a dominant culture or group in a way that is exploitive, disrespectful, or stereotypical. I feel that way too many people are screaming cultural appropriation these days in the comments without actually knowing what they're talking about. Because there are people who are white passing but are part of that culture in some way. They may have even been adopted into a culture that their skin may not match what the largest majority of the rest of the community is. Otherwise, someone might have just become that culture once they realized that those practices resonated with them a lot better than what they were originally born into. I would also like to include an excerpt from Maria Harris's document here. She is mixed race, and while I would love to read the whole thing to you, I will not. I will restrain myself. Please go check it out if you're interested. I will read you the finale. There are many reasons why someone might wear an aspect of another's culture, and most people do it for benevolent reasons. Cultural appropriation only refers to extreme cases like blackface or the Washington Redskins. Cultural appropriation is not for gray areas, Lester said. Thus, if you feel someone is appropriating another culture, just ask them. Conversation is good. You should ask someone their reasons before you accuse them. It should be noted that cultural diversity and cultural appreciation is a good thing. It is what makes our country a melting pot. My parents were raised in the 1960s South and dealt with segregation all the way up through their college years. So to have made this much progress in our society, and now to say that one cannot wear a certain hairstyle because they are not black, is counterproductive to all the progress we have made. While a lot of the topics we mentioned today are big problems, so many people scream cultural appropriation over the tiniest things. So many of us are now mixtures of multiple cultures thanks to the access of long-distance travel and communication. This is just kinda how that works. Some people simply prefer another culture than what they were born into. From this point, I would like to include some personal stories and tidbits to better explain why I feel it is so important for me to talk about this. Not just because we need every skin color talking about this, but because I have had a number of experiences protecting my black friends in difficult situations, and this is just a few of them. Because anyone who's saying I'm not allowed to talk about this topic because of my skin color is completely devaluing the experience I've had with standing in between my black friend and an officer with his weapon pointed at him. Short version of the story, a fist fight broke out around the corner, and we had no idea what was going on. We'd stayed around the corner, had heard a scuffle, didn't bother because it was none of our business. But an officer came around the corner to find out if anyone else was involved in the fight, and automatically assumed that my friend was just because he was black. I automatically stepped in between them and made sure the officer was clear on the fact that he was being extremely discriminatory and that he was a Latino officer already taking on these aspects of racism and stereotyping in his work. One of my friends in high school was mixed and she often got called an Oreo, so one of the times I stood up for her was when a guy was harassing us non-stop all the way down the hall about Oreos. I said, "Oh, I guess that makes you a bagel because you're covered in and full of crap, and I can shove a stick through one end and it'll come out the other." Then I looked at my history teacher and said, "Hey, do you have your yardstick?" He actually went and grabbed it and handed it to me. I chased that guy down the hall. He ran out of the school. Never got to whack him with the stick, sadly. There was also a horrible person in my senior class who had been held back for 2 years, who one day screamed at the top of his lungs that my Jamaican friend would disappear in a movie theater. I kicked his chair out from under him. While these are not necessarily healthy or safe behaviors, these were things that I did during my high school years in order to stand up for my black friends. Also, while I was in elementary school in Texas, out in the middle of nowhere, there was this special needs para who was black, and she would quite literally preach to the students who were black on the playground that white people were evil and all deserved to die. Therefore, I lost all of my black friends in elementary school, and the playground essentially became segregated because of that teacher. Her generational wounds and her own prejudices forced a playground into a separation that hadn't been there for decades. All of this to say, discrimination is discrimination, period, no matter your skin color. Although I will continue to do a lot more research, fact-checking, and continuing to reiterate the opinions and views of those with darker skin than me. Now, how do we fix this? Like I said in the beginning, this will pretty much be a band-aid over a missile wound, but I really want to get somewhere with this and get started on something. Some sort of actionable ending here. Racism and discrimination of all minorities has been going on for far too long, and it has been encouraged for far too long by our current leaders. So, I'll let Sparkle take this one.
I've definitely noticed that there has been an uptick of blackfacing happening in the cosplay community.
And I'm not here to show you all the people that have been doing it. I'm not here to call out or quote unquote cancel these people, because what I'm realizing with the uptick happening is that these people aren't here to learn. They're here to do it to get the traction that they want so their account blows up. Through the online space, a lot of people will do things just to get the attention, whether it be negative or positive, because at the end of the day, it's still traction being held to their account. So there's definitely gonna be a lot more people doing it just for attention. You know Blackface is wrong. I know Blackface is wrong. Axel upstairs know Blackface is wrong. They know Blackface is wrong, but it also gets them attention that they want. And I know it sounds like I'm saying just ignore Blackface. We don't have to talk about the bad things about Blackface. We can still talk about why Blackface is wrong, but trying to teach people that aren't willing to learn is going to stress you more out than it's going to like help at the end of the day. So we just need to stop. We just need to ignore these people. Just ignore them, block them, report them, and carry on. Tell your friends like, hey, this person did Blackface, just remove them. We need to stop giving them the attention that they want. And also, if you are going to be in my comment section trying to explain to me what Blackface is, go do it somewhere else, because I'm not going to fight you guys.
Stop giving them a name over and over and over and over again. Call them out once, but do not make it your life's mission to cancel them on the internet. It is not worth your energy to ruin an idiot's day. It is much more important to use the topic as a teachable moment, get that information out there, and then move on with your life.
Hi, I'm Shavion, an emotional girly trying to navigate unknown world. Every day I wake up to my irritation with the world snowballing more and more. Cause what do you mean we're still figuring out basic human rights? Now I've become an example for, oh, roses can grow from concrete, but I hate that because everyone deserves grass. You see, since that decrepit man became our president, it's like a cloud has hovered over the world. Yes, I do mean all over the world, because we are all so deeply connected and nothing happens in a vacuum. And it's sad to think that a part of that anger isn't even rooted in much besides orchestrated ignorance. It pisses me off how brainwashed people are. There is this constant invisible battle going on. The energy of this world is so dense right now. It's so like not collaborative. It's so like every man for themselves. And in being in that defensive warlike mind space, I feel like I've lost this sense of connection with myself that I am really trying so hard to get back to. Like, I just don't feel as magical. It's like all of my whimsy is being drained from me, all of my magic. It's like it's hard to even believe in magic. It's hard to make space for magic. It's hard to see the magic right now because I just feel so angry, so disconnected, and because I just can't connect with this type of world. And we have billionaires cosplaying, caring about poor people, but it's like, you know, actually do something. It feels that way to me. It feels like nobody is taking action right now because I'm just seeing so many things crumble. That these phones, they have designed these phones to keep us on here. They have designed them to be a place of escape for us because they know that the world is poop, because they are part of the reason that the world is poop. Because if I am feeling that much grief because of what's happening in the world, I need to allow myself to feel it. I need to allow myself to feel it. I need to get around other people who feel it so that I can mourn with other people.
It's time for you to look inward and begin asking yourself the big questions. Who are you? And what do you want?
Okay, so how am I going to deal with my anger before it debilitates me moving forward? Cool. I have noticed that gratitude, and that sounds corny. Hey, don't click off the video. I swear in every major religious text or spiritual text, they all talk about like love, gratitude, and compassion. But gratitude really stands out to me. I can get lost in gratitude. Like I'm about to get lost in the sauce of gratitude and just feeling whole and remembering that there is a place for me in this world and that this world is taking care of me, even though it is making me angry. The things on this planet is making me angry. It is also simultaneously taking such deep care of me and so many other people. And there's something about kind of slowing down to kind of acknowledge that I feel like completely changes your brain chemistry. Like, it's not just survival shit. Like, I feel like this world only makes enough room for us in survival if we allow it to, if we don't demand that more space be carved out for us. Not really sedate my anger, but loosen it up and allow what's underneath the anger to come up. Allow all that grief, allow all of the frustration, allow myself to really feel it so that I can know what I can do to help, genuinely. And me making this video is a part of what I'm doing to help. So yeah, we all have a part to play, no matter how big or small.
I can make the sun shine?
Even in the material world, you will find that if you look for the light, you can often find it. But if you look for the dark, that is all you will ever see.
Take care of each other in your own communities. Keep your bubbles small at first, keep them safe and clean, and then they can slowly grow. But enforcing them on other groups and people causes that bubble to pop. So take care of you and act as a positive example. Not doing things like blackface or wearing something from another culture just as a costume is about showing respect to those in the past who did not get it and those in the present who are still fighting a good fight. We need to make cosplay a safe space for marginalized communities. But with cosplay becoming so mainstream now, it makes it really difficult. Some may say we may have backslid way too far to come crawling back up from this. But I say, when we hit our lowest point, we are open to the greatest change. A quote from Aang, the Last Airbender. Which makes me very happy that Shay had so many references from The Last Airbender because I picked that quote before I watched Shay's video. So these conversations need to happen, and ignoring the cultural and historical significance behind it leads to there being no changes and worsening the circumstances. We will keep cycling back to this again and again until there is an understanding and there is respect. Then we can have growth. While I did not know her personally, I have a feeling that Ashley, Squid Kid 1111, would not want us at each other's throats. To my understanding, all she ever wanted to do was have fun and be in cosplay and for everybody else to do the same. To have a space where there is no bullying and we can all just have fun playing dress up. And using her death as an excuse for bullying on any front proves that you do not have any respect for the people who have lost their lives over the bullying that they have experienced on the internet. Because all they wanted was to escape the discrimination. In memory of Ashley, Vincent, Shi, I really hope I pronounced your name right, I'm sorry, Rex, Michaela, Miss Dingo, Snowball, and Raleigh, and so many other creators that I'm not going to be able to fit into one video who've taken their own lives because of bullying online. Do better, be nice to people, and the one that I love to keep taped to my chest, treat people the way you want to be treated.